So, my 10 leadership learnings from 2020. When I stepped up to be Deputy President back in November 2018, 2020 seemed like a genuinely really long time away. But fast forward to today, and as we're nearing the end of what's been a pretty phenomenal year, it goes without saying that leading JCI Manchester in 2020 has definitely been a bit of a rollercoaster. But putting the pandemic aside, I stepped up to the role of being President to have the opportunity to learn. The ethos of JCI is all about learning by doing, and with a global mission to provide development opportunities that empower young people to create positive change. I'd like to think I've lived up to this. That's my cat there. So I've shortlisted my top 10 leadership learnings into a short vlog, which I've also done as a blog. So if you're more of a reader than a watcher, you can also enjoy it in written form. So it'll be in a few little short parts to make it a little bit of an easier recording experience, and I hope you enjoy my leadership learnings from this year. Leadership lessons 1 and 2 relate to vision and goals. And it seems pretty obvious, but having clarity on your purpose, the why, and how it all fits together in the form of a vision is actually really kind of quite hard to do. And it's only when you're faced with rapid change and that vision can actually help anchor you when your plans go out of the window. It's very much the case in the kind of product digital world that I'm used to in my day job, but it was definitely a real learning curve leading a voluntary team. The vision I'd proposed for JCI Manchester this year was the following: to be a diverse, engaged and empowered, internationally connected network that provides development opportunities to young professionals. And I've certainly referred back to that a lot this year, especially during our response to see how we can support our community in relation to what happened with the Black Lives Matter protests and the global rallies of support and engagement for fighting for racial equality. And interestingly, there was a conference that JCI UK did just this last week where we had Andy Burnham speaking, and he mentioned something that just added to what I'd written in the blog, which was he set a really ambitious goal, an ambitious vision to bring people with him, which was about eradicating homelessness. It's no good to make it 50% less. It needs to be that there are 0 people sleeping on the streets of Manchester. And I thought that for me was exactly kind of like really big, bold ambition that people kind of can get behind and see where they need to kind of step up and what they can do. But goals, obviously this year, a lot of our plans went out of the window when we started our plan before the pandemic. But for me, sometimes when you say goals, it can evoke deadlines in order to achieve something. And as a leader, quite often setting clear expectations of when things need to be delivered sets a tone to keeping up momentum with achieving your desired goals. And that takes determination and in particular, like not worrying that you're being bossy. Sometimes you need to be direct, and it's about getting comfortable with straight talking, which is actually something surprisingly I've struggled with a lot at times, as I'm quite a people pleaser, and the thought of being quite direct can sometimes make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. So there's been a real lesson there in being directive at times. But goals can also mean understanding people's personal and professional goals. And this was something I really wanted to focus on at the start of 2020 with the voluntary board. So I took on board some practical training, a technique that I'd experienced at JCI's European Leadership Academy. And that was writing down your mid-year goal. And knowing that it would be posted to you creates a sense of personal accountability. So I did the same exercise with the Manchester team back in January of this year, asking them to write down what their goal was for 6 months' time. I kept them and I sent them back this summer, which in particular was like a nice little boost of reminding ourselves the sort of things that we said that we wanted to achieve this year. So reminding yourself of a commitment that you've made to your own personal development can be a really powerful way to keep yourself honest. So when those New Year's resolutions come in January, maybe post it or ask a friend to keep it for 6 months and really check in with yourself. It definitely helps to keep you honest and focus on how you can achieve your goals. Leadership lessons 3 and 4 were agility and flexibility. And obviously, given my day job as working within a fast-moving digital product team, being agile actually seems rather obvious. But again, when it's you in the leadership hot seat, it's recognising that you need to constantly weave between being sort of like reactive and proactive. And this year has been a real testament for sort of looking at how I can deliver on our kind of goals for JCI Manchester, while obviously, you know, your well-laid plans going out of the window, and also looking at how we've had to pivot to our, obviously, from a physical event programme to an online programme. And it's also in terms of how you decide that you want to react, as there's so much change going on right now. It's hard to be constantly reactive. You can always feel like you're on the back foot. So trying to find time to sort of look ahead into areas where you can kind of make some kind of dividends. So one example, and it's a little simple one, but our annual general meeting is always in December. And that meant that I could plan ahead for the end of year call out for our new board members, thinking about some ways that we could promote the roles, and creating the content was always going to be something that I could kind of look ahead to and make sure that we had a really good plan for getting an amazing board, which we have an amazing new 2021 board, which I'm really excited about as well. Also, when it comes to flexibility, this is also meant about knowing when you need to ask for help and support. It's about learning to flex in and out of, what you're working on, and knowing that you don't have all the answers or the best approach. And as somebody who likes to sort of feel quite confident and sort of solutions orientated, actually sometimes holding your hands up and saying, I'm not quite sure. And that leads into flexibility in thinking. And that's definitely something that I've really had to work on. So you don't just jump to one way of doing something. Having that person to bounce ideas off and bring some different thinking is really important to challenge yourself. I know as my year of president, I've had a few people that I can just go to and just sort of sense check things in that early stage before you maybe drop a note to the whole team or sort of send an email and just kind of maybe get met with a little bit of a kind of dodgy reaction. And just sort of think about who you surround yourself with. If they help you to challenge your thinking and flex your approach, they're exactly the kind of people that you want to be surrounding yourself with. Leadership lessons 5 and 6, empowerment and empathy. These are obviously two big business buzzwords, a bit of a mouthful there, I know. But when we get down to what is the true essence of leadership, how you empower those around you while being empathetic and also being comfortable with vulnerability is where you separate out what it truly means to be a great leader. And I know there's a lot more growth for me to do in this area. And part of the things I'm talking about here are for me to learn and grow to be a more kind of empowering and empathetic leader. So delegation is wrapped up with empowerment, as when you lead a team of volunteers, it's about how you strike the right balance of not trying to do all the work yourself, but also that kind of control element of not wanting to let go, because it's hard when you're trying to deliver things on top of your day job. To me, how you look at sort of developing others and give them a chance to develop, that's the epitome of what it means to be a JCI member. It's giving others around you a chance to get involved, to share their experience and passion and enthusiasm for something. And the award that we won for the Hustle Hour podcast is a really lovely example of a member who had a great idea and has run with it, and we've won an award for the podcast. Another great example of that was a member had actually suggested to us the idea of a startup story. So I had an initial sort of conversation with a partner that we have, and Josh took that and stepped up and ran the events, and it looks like it will continue into next year. Similarly with Danielle, one of our members who'd been furloughed, decided that she wanted to run a resilience workshop to help those young professionals who have been impacted by furlough and redundancy. So it was a really great example of people who sort of came up with ideas, had something, I was like, amazing, you run with it. And it's been really great to see the impact that we've had off the back of just seeing someone take an idea and fly with it. And that's definitely something I know I kind of held back probably more at the beginning, and how I can support more members and other kind of local chapters across the UK with any ideas that they just want to kind of have run past me. I'm more than happy to do that. But a final tip on empowerment that I had early on in my leadership journey was from our amazing vice president assigned to us in the UK, which was Jenny from Sweden. And a really obvious tip, and I've had to work at it, is that what are the one few things that you need from others, and ask for those things at the beginning of the day well ahead of time. And it's just something we can always work on, of how we can empower others by being honest and what we can help and support each other with. For example, please could you just look at this presentation for me today? I'm looking for some feedback. Get that out in the morning, and then the person's got the day or another day to kind of come back to you. Building empathy. I know I rely on my intuition a lot, but I know I can always work on my listening skills, because I'm a bit of a chatterbox. So working on actively listening is a key step to being able to show empathy and really listening. Sometimes it's the stuff that is in between the lines where you're really sort of, what did you mean by that? Or I'm kind of hearing maybe you're a little bit worried about something. So one way I worked on building empathy across the team this year has just been through the simple art of a check-in. I do it in my day job. I do it when we sort of facilitate sessions, but a check-in with the team is just a really great way to kind of see where people are. And the pandemic had changed our ways of working. Some board members were on furlough, some had been made redundant, others had obviously inevitably taken on a really heavy workload. So I was really mindful that when we were having our board meetings, people were kind of coming from different places. So I just ran a really simple, light-hearted check-in at the start of the board, just to sort of get that context and build a bit of empathy, because everyone had sort of been through the mill. And it was just a little bit of fun, which was, where are you on the scale of moody cat? So we had like meh cat in the middle, like a happy cat or a really sad cat, a scale of 1 to 5. And it definitely helped people just to sort of have a little bit of lightheartedness, and even just like chatting afterwards, people would be like, I'm definitely a 5 now, I've had something to eat and drink and I feel loads better. So finding little ways and moments to kind of just create a bit of a shared conversation in your team definitely helped me feel more confident in building empathy and understanding where people are coming from. Leadership learning 7 and 8, reflection and iteration. So this is a behaviour that's obvious, but it also is something that takes continual effort and focus. Reflection is the easier part as long as you make time for it, like however that works for you. I personally consciously set aside time at the end of each week just to do a quick check-in with myself, like what's happened this week, what have I learned, and what am I thinking about? And I tried that earlier on this year, and it's definitely helped just to sort of like check back, like, are you still thinking about the same things? But also, while obviously individual reflection is important, how you reflect as a team is super valuable. In my day job as a delivery manager, we run regular retrospectives, which is, a check-in on what's going well and where can we do better. But I aim to apply some of this thinking with our board meetings. So at the end of our first quarter this year, I did a specific slot to ask for feedback, like what's gone well, where could we improve? And I also did a summer check-in with the team, which was really helpful, just to sort of pause and take a moment to remember like what we've done and achieved. And I'm also running an end-of-year retrospective with the other local presidents from across the UK to help on pass any learnings to the next year's team. It's been a pretty challenging year to be a voluntary leader of a young professionals organisation, so capturing any learnings or insights that can help future presidents and teams think about this, I thought would be a really valuable thing. Iterating though, this is the other interesting areas, reflecting and iterating. It's the constant tweaking, testing, learning, improving how you do something. Actually is much harder and takes a lot of sort of conscious effort and commitment. And I've tried some different approaches, for example, of how I like to communicate. And I've definitely found like a mix of video and written works well. Like for example, this piece that I'm doing now, I had the time to write it as a blog, to think about it, to be inclusive as well, in the way that not everyone likes to engage with video. People much prefer to maybe read long form content. So that's helped me sort of work through my thinking, but I'm obviously quite a people person. I've got quite a high outward extroverted energy. So just knowing that how I wanted to communicate and how I like people to sort of hear and engage with me, video works so much better. So I've definitely found a way to communicate a little bit more in my style this year. So when you think about anything you want to develop or achieve, recognising you can go through a number of formats and get to something that works for you and the team is also a good reminder that you don't need to get it right first time. Just keep testing and learning and trying different things and just be a bit braver and experimenting. It's definitely something I want to do more of in 2021. More experimenting and iterating and trying out different things. It takes bravery. And last but not least, leadership lessons 9 and 10. Believe and you will achieve. In order to lead, you need to have determination and resilience. It's pretty tough. Self-doubt creeps in, like you question if you're doing a good job and you forget all the times you've achieved something. And as we come to the end of 2020, I'm definitely going to be looking back on my reflections, learnings and achievements. And I'm definitely that geeky person who does like to try and keep an achievement log. It doesn't need to be anything fancy. It's just sort of like once a month, like jotting down like your highs and your lows. I managed to do it for 6 months on a Google Doc for my JCI year. I've got a few other things along the way that I've captured as the year's gone on. But it's a really great way that if you've got imposter syndrome, and particularly when you're leading, just for me anyway, you just doubt yourself loads. So it's a really good reminder just to sort of see what you've overcome, what you've achieved, and it definitely helps you get through the tough times when the self-doubt creeps in. But one thing I've definitely found myself reflecting on in terms of my achievements is the things that I actually haven't achieved, the things that you thought you would do that you didn't. And that's actually been the harder part, because this really does sort of play to your imposter syndrome and your inner critic to say, actually, you might not have done as well. But I think I might have come up with an idea that's definitely going to help me in 2021, and I hope it might help other people, is the idea, I've kind of borrowed it a little bit from some of the digital thinking of like an MVP, a minimum viable product, to minimum personal achievement, MPA. So what is the minimum that you want to achieve? For example, like if at the start of this year, I'd actually set out that I wanted to learn some practical leadership lessons, won a minimum of 2 UK awards, and been part of a team that ran the NYTAs, I would have said that I would have achieved 2 of those, and one of them was outside of my control. And I think that is a really great way of framing it. What do you at a minimum want to achieve? And then recognise that sometimes things can go a little bit out of your control. But as we inevitably pause and reflect on 2020 and think about 2021, maybe look at writing down what is a minimum personal achievement for you. It could be just like that you've got out and got some fresh air every day. It could be that you've made time to see your friends and family. It could be like, what's that one thing that you want to learn? So I thought that could be quite interesting to kind of think about that as we always reflect on the end of the year, and maybe check back in 6 months' time and see how you've got on. So I hope you've enjoyed finding out a little bit more about what I've learned from my year of leading JCI Manchester. I wanted to share this with you with the intention of showing why JCI is such an important organisation, to give young professionals the opportunity to try, to learn, to fail, and just keep going in a safe and supportive environment. I definitely feel so much more confident in myself about stepping up into my professional career with all the learnings and lessons from this year. And there's still loads more for me to work on, but just reflecting on this piece in itself has given me some areas of focus for next year. But what have been your biggest leadership learnings? I'd be really interested to kind of find out, like, particularly from other people through my network and contacts in and around Manchester and further afield. What have you learned from a leadership point of view? How can we help ensure our young people in particular get the opportunities that they deserve to develop into future leaders? I'd really love to hear any of your thoughts and comments. So here's to learning and growing some more in 2021 with a brilliant new 2021 team for JCI Manchester that I'm very amazingly excited to support and see all their amazing ideas and to make more impact in 2021. So thank you for listening.